Welcome to Lingotales, where we will live the story and learn the language. What would you give for a dream that always seemed just beyond your reach? Today, we are telling The Little Mermaid, a classic tale of wonder, longing, love, and sacrifice. Deep beneath the waves, a young mermaid princess lives in a glittering palace, but her thoughts keep rising toward the world above. She wants to see ships, skies, flowers, and human faces, yet her deepest wish is larger than curiosity. She longs for a life with meaning beyond the sea. The story carries us from bright underwater gardens to stormy waters, from a royal palace to a ship touched by dawn, and it begins in the blue silence below. A shining coral palace stood on the deep ocean floor, surrounded by swaying sea flowers and silver fish. Its shell-covered walls glimmered in the quiet light, and tall windows looked out over gardens rooted in the sand. In that palace lived a sea king, wise and powerful, with a beard as white as foam. He had 6 beautiful daughters, all mermaid princesses. The youngest was the loveliest of them all. Her silver tail flashed as she swam, but her deep blue eyes carried a thoughtful sadness. The youngest mermaid often sat alone in her small underwater garden while her sisters played among coral and glowing fish. She loved the palace, yet her heart kept wandering beyond its bright halls. Around her, strange flowers bent gently with the waves, and in the distance her sisters laughed and chased light through the water. Whenever her grandmother spoke about the world above, the little mermaid listened closely. She heard of white-sailed ships, forests full of birds, sweet flowers, and a sky where clouds drifted overhead. The little mermaid listened beside her grandmother as soft green-blue light filled a quiet palace room. The old queen told her that humans lived much shorter lives than mermaids, but they had something mermaids did not. They had immortal souls. When a human died, something within that person rose beyond the stars. Mermaids, however, lived for 300 years and then became foam upon the waves. The words troubled the young princess, and she carried them silently in her heart. One older mermaid returned to the palace after seeing the surface world, and her excited sisters gathered around her. As each princess reached her 15th birthday, she was allowed to rise above the sea. Each one came back with stories that made the youngest listen breathlessly. The eldest had seen a sunset turn the whole sky gold. Another had watched a city by the shore, alive with music and lights. Another had seen ice fields shine beneath the winter moon. The youngest waited and dreamed. At last, the youngest mermaid turned 15, and her grandmother placed a wreath of white lilies in her hair. The princess felt joy mixed with nervous wonder, for the moment she had imagined for so long had finally come. She left the palace, past the waving gardens, and swam upward through the cool blue water. Above her, the sea grew brighter with every stroke. Higher and higher she rose, leaving the coral halls behind, until her head broke through the surface for the first time. The little mermaid lifted her head above the waves and saw the wide evening sky for the first time. It stretched endlessly above her, pale and bright, with soft clouds touched by the setting sun. The air felt strange, light, and cool against her skin. Not far away, a great ship moved across the water, its sails glowing like wings. Lanterns shone along its sides, and music drifted over the waves. The world above was even more beautiful than the stories had promised. The little mermaid watched through a ship window as a young prince smiled among music, lanterns, and fireworks. Inside, people were celebrating his birthday with laughter and song. The prince stood at the center of it all, with dark eyes, a kind face, and a warm smile. Fireworks burst above the mast like sudden stars. The mermaid watched him for hours, unable to look away. Of all the wonders she had seen that night, none moved her heart as deeply as the prince. Dark clouds covered the moon as sailors rushed across the tilting ship in a violent storm. The sea rose quickly, and the great vessel leaned and groaned as waves struck its sides. The music stopped. Sails tore in the wind, thunder rolled overhead, and rain swept across the black water. The Little Mermaid watched with growing fear as the ship struggled helplessly. Then a huge wave lifted it high and smashed it apart, scattering wood and frightened people into the sea. The Little Mermaid held the unconscious prince above the stormy waves in the dark sea. She had seen him fall, and she knew that humans could not breathe beneath the water. The waves dragged at him, but she swam to him without thinking of danger and lifted his face into the air. The storm raged through the long night, yet she kept him safe in her arms. Through cold darkness and broken water, she carried him toward land, protecting the life of the one she loved. At sunrise, the Little Mermaid laid the prince on the sand near a white building and quiet gardens. The storm had passed, and the sea lay calm behind her. She kissed his forehead, then hid behind the rocks as footsteps came closer. A young woman appeared from the building and found him. Soon others gathered, and the prince opened his eyes. He smiled at the young woman, believing she had saved him. Hidden nearby, the mermaid felt both joy at his life and sorrow at his mistake. The Little Mermaid floated near the shore, watching the prince's white palace steps from the sea. After that morning, she could not forget him. Again and again she rose from the deep to look toward the place where he lived. Sometimes she saw him walking in the gardens, and sometimes she watched him sailing across the water. Every glimpse made her love stronger. Yet she remained hidden among the waves, unable to tell him that she was the one who had carried him through the storm. The sad Little Mermaid sat with her grandmother while her sisters watched her in the underwater palace. Everyone could see that she had changed. She no longer sang as she once had, and even her coral garden brought her little comfort. Her grandmother spoke gently but seriously about the distance between mermaids and humans. A mermaid could belong to the human world only if a human loved her more than anyone else and joined his life to hers. Only then could she share in his soul. The Little Mermaid swam alone through a dark part of the sea filled with twisted plants and shadowy creatures. For a long time, she carried her grandmother's words in silence, but her longing finally became too heavy to bear. She left the palace and traveled toward the sea witch. The path was frightening. Strange creatures moved in the shadows, and long sea plants seemed to reach for her as the water grew cold and heavy. Still, she continued until she reached a strange house made of bones and stones. The sea witch waited inside her bone and stone house as the Little Mermaid stood before her. She seemed to understand the princess's wish before it was spoken. The witch could give her a potion that would change her tail into human legs, but every step would feel like walking on sharp knives. She could never return to the sea as a mermaid. If the prince married another, she would become foam at dawn after his wedding. In payment, the witch demanded her beautiful voice. The Little Mermaid received the witch's potion after surrendering her voice in the dark underwater house. She trembled because her voice was the finest treasure she possessed and the one gift she might have offered the prince. Yet her longing for him, for the human world, and for an immortal soul was stronger than her fear. She agreed to the price. The witch took her voice, and from that moment she could no longer sing or speak. Silent and full of sorrowful hope, she swam toward the surface. Before sunrise, the Little Mermaid drank the potion on the prince's palace steps and collapsed in pain. A burning force passed through her body, sharper than anything she had ever known, and she fainted on the stone. When she opened her eyes again, the prince was standing over her. Her silver tail had vanished, and in its place were 2 human legs. She could not speak or explain who she was. To the prince, she was only a beautiful silent girl, wrapped in morning light. The prince led the silent mermaid through the palace, while courtiers admired her graceful steps. He treated her kindly, dressed her in fine clothes, and kept her near him. No one knew that each step hurt as if sharp knives pressed into her feet. She bore the pain without complaint, because every moment beside the prince felt precious. She followed him through gardens, marble halls, and along the shore, answering his kindness only with her eyes and with a devotion she could not put into words. The little mermaid stood beside the prince as he gazed toward the shore, remembering another young woman. He cared for her tenderly and called her a dear treasure sent by the sea, but he did not love her in the way she hoped. His heart belonged to the memory of the young woman he had seen when he woke after the storm. He believed that woman had saved his life. The little mermaid could not correct him. Her voice was gone, and with it, her story. The little mermaid danced beautifully in the palace while hiding the pain in her feet. She still hoped, so she smiled when the prince smiled and stood beside him beneath the stars, listening to the sea beyond the palace walls. At night, when everyone slept, she went to the shore and cooled her aching feet in the water. Her sisters rose from the waves to see her. Their long hair cut short in grief, and they wept because she looked so pale and silent. In a neighboring kingdom, the prince saw the princess who once found him on the shore. Before the meeting, he told the little mermaid that he wished to marry only the young woman who had saved him. The mermaid felt a small flame of hope because she knew the truth. But when the princess came forward, the prince's face filled with wonder. She was the same young woman from the white building by the sea. To him, it seemed that fate had returned her to him. The prince and princess celebrated their wedding on a grand ship beneath golden evening light. Music filled the air, and everyone around them rejoiced. The little mermaid stood nearby, silent and pale, while her heart broke quietly. She could not hate the princess, who was kind and innocent, and she could not blame the prince, who had never known the truth. So she danced one last time, more beautifully than ever, though her sorrow cut deeper than the pain in her feet. At night, the little mermaid stood by the ship railing as her short-haired sisters rose from the sea with a knife. The prince and princess slept in their tent, and dawn was near. At sunrise, she would become foam. Her sisters had given their long hair to the sea witch in exchange for the knife. They begged her to use it before the sun came up. If the prince died, her legs would become a tail again, and she could return to the sea. The little mermaid stood beside the sleeping prince and bride, holding the knife with trembling hands. His face was peaceful, and he looked as kind as he had on the night she first saw him. She remembered the storm, the shore at dawn, and all the silent days she had spent beside him. She could not harm him. The knife slipped from her hand into the sea, where the waves reddened for a moment. Then she stepped to the edge and threw herself into the water. At sunrise, the little mermaid rose from the sea as a clear, bright spirit among shining daughters of the air. She had expected to vanish into foam, but instead she felt weightless. The sea no longer held her, and her body became bright and transparent in the morning air. Around her floated gentle beings, light as clouds touched by sunlight. She had not won the prince's heart, but she had chosen mercy over her own life. Because of that choice, she was given a new path. The Little Mermaid is a story of longing, but also of choice. She dreams of the human world, of love, and of a soul that can rise beyond the sea. She loses her voice, endures great pain, and learns that love cannot be forced or earned through suffering. In the end, her greatest moment is not winning the prince, but refusing to destroy his happiness in order to save herself. Her sorrow does not vanish, but it changes into peace. For language learners, the story offers clear emotions, vivid images, and a quiet lesson: goodness still matters, even when dreams do not end as we hoped. You can find the learning materials for this story, along with many more stories, on our website at lingotales.app. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with others. And if Lingotales is helpful for your learning journey, consider subscribing so you can stay connected with our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.